The Constitutional Court has asked parties involved in former President Jacob Zuma's rescission application to make some submissions on whether it is obliged to consider a UN covenant on civil and political rights. The covenant covers the rights due to due process and fair trial, among other civil and political rights of people. It comes as the former president is set to appear before the Pietermaritzburg High Court on Tuesday in a fraud and corruption case. Now, the Jacob Zuma Foundation has welcomed the ConCourt's decision to look into the former president's rescission application. Spokesperson Hanyane spoke to Newzroom Afrika about this yesterday.
I think for us, the foundation, in receiving this, we're quite happy that, in fact, what this means is that the legal arguments, the merits of the legal arguments of our legal team is really being entertained and being taken seriously. So we're very happy with that. So it means at least this is a step in the right direction. Of course, this comes about as a result of the application to receive the judgment that has seen something, a travesty of justice, where an 80-year-old man almost has been taken into prison without trial, as it were. So what these directives are about, in fact, the funny thing about these directives is that maybe also to correct something in your intro, what the constitution of this country requires the court to do in terms of Section 39 is to do exactly what the court is only trying to do only now, actually. So what this means is that it's actually quite a funny situation, because what this means from a lay person is that the court is now waking up to the obligation that it should have executed in terms of Section 39. Section 39 obliges the court to take into account international law. Now, for the court to be waking up to that realization when President Zuma has already spent 30 days in prison is another misnomer, as it were, which we hope that our lawyers are going to deal with that. But at the same time, it means that there is now much more serious reflection on the issues that our lawyers have raised, that the constitution of this country has been flouted on two places, on Section 12 and on Section 35. So indeed, we hope that this is a step in the right direction, that finally the right decision will be made.
Right, to expand on this and other matters, we're now joined by political analyst, Professor Barry Hanyane. Professor, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. We listened there to Jacob Zuma Foundation spokesperson Newzroom saying that the fact that the Constitutional Court has only now waken up to a decision it should have made earlier really doesn't make sense, that they should have been this consideration should have been made at a much earlier stage before the former president spent 30 days behind bars. What do you make of it?
Well, and members of the studio there, your viewers as well, good morning. I think this is one way of actually pushing the bar to say the former president deserves more concessions than any other person who may be tried before a South African court of law. If you look back into the very same merits that the foundation would want to scrutinize to the bone, you will realize and recall that in some instances, it's the very same apex court that actually asked and solicited the kind of sanction that would be somewhat amicable for the former president to be given. And that in itself has not been done in the courts of South Africa. So it's one way of actually pushing the bar to say maybe an international tribunal might arrive at a different position, a position that says for some reason the South African Constitutional Court might have erred. And I don't think that that concession would be readily available to appease the camp of the former president.
And the Constitutional Court ironed out the details, saying that Zuma's legal team must submit these documents addressing these two very important issues, international law and the constitutional implications, giving them a deadline of the 18th of August. Could this translate into a different outcome for the former president?
I don't think so. It's two sets of submissions that are anticipated 18th and 20th respectively. I don't think so. For me, it's more like, look, in the initial judgment, this was not somewhat of an anonymous, not necessarily anonymous, but outright judgment by all the sitting judges. There was a minority judgment, and then, of course, the majority judgment. So perhaps that crack does offer a glimpse of hope for the Zuma camp. I'm certain that it's just there to be argued and debated. The merits of their presentation and argument is still yet to be received, siphoned out and discussed from a legal point of view. I think it's a concession of a kind that let's leave it to the constitutional experts as well to lead us, but I don't find this to weigh favorably for the ex-president.
The former president, on Friday, we learned that he was rushed to hospital for some medical intervention. And we just heard Mzwanele Manyu saying that it's a travesty of justice that an 80-year-old is taken to prison without trial. The former president's health has been something we continue to hear throughout whether he was needing to attend to the arms deal matter, but his health has come under the spotlight. And we also, just looking at the Sunday Independent here, it speaks of how Zuma was meant to fly to Cuba for medical help after the Easter weekend, but pulled back because he didn't want his detractors to think that he was running away from the arms deal matter. What do you make of that focus around the former president's health and his age? Will that recuse him from matters that he needs to face to?
I think there are two things here. One, it will be an obvious fact that from a humanitarian point of view, his health will always come to the fore. And given that immediate position, it would then put the authorities under pressure to say, is the former president comfortable? Is he treated well? Besides the possible outcry that the public and all others who have interest in the matter would want to see him being treated like any other person. But there's a second point to this whole issue. Could we see another chapter in the former president's book in relation to applying what we now know as Stalingrad tactics on a different platform altogether? This would then mean convenience is sought in Cuba, but at the same time, if the whole issue of his ill health does hold water, is Cuba the only place in the world where such treatment can be offered to him? Are we not having suitable health facilities and systems by and large in this country that could at least provide him with the health relief that he might be seeking? So unfortunately, it does open a number of questions, and I'm hoping that come this week, he will basically fulfill his position of actually attending his trial.
Yes, that trial set for Tuesday, and we are expecting that the former president is, well, set to appear in person. And, you know, ahead of that appearance, there's a lot of talk from the RET forces speaking about how they're going to use the opportunity to show, as a show of force against President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Unfortunately, the fault lines within the governing party are much more conspicuous for all to bear. And quite rightly, we would see them showcasing their unwavering, unconditional support for the former president. I'm hoping that it would not stand into the kind of violence that it potentially might carry. But more discipline, of course, in lieu of the fact that we are still in a period of a pandemic. and restrictions are there, protocols are there. Surely it's their right to demonstrate, but at the same time show support in a way that is befitting the kind of circumstances in which as South Africans we find ourselves in.
As I make mention of President Cyril Ramaphosa, of course we saw the big changes that were made regarding cabinet and the reshuffle and him bringing state security closer and making it his responsibility. We're also hearing that National Police Commissioner Kehla Sethole is not leaving anything to chance when it comes to ensuring that there is a police presence in KwaZulu-Natal and that they are well organized ahead of the former president's appearance. What does this then speak to when it comes to the lessons that have been learned and perhaps the sort of confidence that President Cyril Ramaphosa wants to instill in the general public?
But let's be honest, I think the damage is done here. There's little from an effective and efficient public administration point of view that can still instill confidence, but more so deliver the kind of security, confidence that we need to see. For the mere fact that the security cluster was in 6s and 7s demonstrates to us that so much work needs to be done there. I'm not convinced that having taken the responsibility only to retain Zizi Kodwa as a deputy minister will actually provide a seamless transition. I think more problems are yet to be uncovered, and for the mere fact that we don't have a formidable kind of executive communication system at that level demonstrates to us that perhaps ideological divisions within the executive are still there, but more so we are sitting on a state that is closer towards a state of being fractional, not being able to deliver on its promise and make sure that protection of the citizens becomes a priority on any given agenda.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for weighing in on that discussion. Political analyst Professor Barry Hanyane giving some detail and analysis ahead of former President Jacob Zuma's appearance in the Pietermaritzburg High Court come Tuesday, and also the Constitutional Court also asking former President Jacob Zuma's lawyers to submit a 20-page submission when it comes to that court of contempt matter.